Mm. All right, we're here with City Councilor, the Vice President of the North Adams City Councilor, Jason Laforest, who, from what I understand, looks like he's running for mayor. So, my friend, and by the way, this is you used to be the North County correspondent to the John Kroll Show, so you've come a long way, I think. You
I always loved being on the John Kroll Show. It was always a good time.
So, congratulations. I think. I mean, you're there. You're almost there, but it sounds like you're almost definitely running for mayor.
I'm in the exploratory phase of pulling papers to returning papers to actively campaigning to run for mayor of North Adams this fall. Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. So
some people say I'm running, some people say I'm not running, and we'll see. Until I turn my papers back into the city clerk, we'll pretend it is and isn't, I guess.
So if you're going for it, talk to me about North Adams and tell me why you'd be running for mayor, Jason.
Well, North Adams is my hometown. So first and foremost, I love North Adams. The people of North Adams are my friends, my family, my neighbors. I have always been engaged in what's going on in North Adams. Even when I was away at college, my friends in college in Potsdam, New York, would make fun of me because I always talked about North Adams with such poetry that apparently they made fun of me behind my back, that the sky was prettier in North Adams, the trees were prettier, the hills were prettier, everything was prettier.
And I have to say you come by honestly, because it looks like the city of North Adams has somehow found its way literally in your office there.
Yeah. So my trains, my memorabilia, Her Majesty the Queen's over there somewhere. My Pepe is there on the counter, or the bookcase.
Your office is located somewhere in a steeple within the Hoosick Tunnel, and
I am the hunchback of the Hoosick Tunnel. Yes, I am. Absolutely.
I love it. So yeah, lots of issues. I mean, the one, it's interesting. I mean, not to speculate, but there was a big fire and a big issue with the fire hydrants.
Yeah.
Which, when it looks like, something like that from a perspective of public service, to me, it seems as though that was perhaps, again, I can't speak for the current mayor and why he decided not to choose reelection or choose to run for reelection, but that was a big one, I think. And I think when you look at initiatives and things you want to accomplish in a city, you got to remember, you got to do the basics. You have to do the important things, and that public service, those are the bare minimum things you got to do.
Well, successful economies, especially at the local level, have many layers. And after Sprague Electric Company left and the hospital closed, the previous administrations and this administration were really focused on keeping us afloat, really, in an era of diminishing state and federal funding. So tough choices had to be made. And I wasn't in the corner office, I was on city council, but I'm not privy to all of the conversations the previous, mayors had, but they had to make tough choices. But the reality is, in spite of those tough choices, infrastructure has suffered, and that has led to some serious safety issues. So in the last month and a half, we've had 3 serious fires, each of which involved non-working fire hydrants, delaying the response of the fire department to putting out the fires. And thank God, none of the firefighters, none of the families suffered any loss of human life. But of course, we have 5 or 6 families that have been displaced. And, we're all struggling this year. It's been a tough year for everyone on so many levels. And now in the midst of the COVID pandemic, to lose your home, in part because fire hydrants weren't available. It's just really sad. So, my response as a nurse manager is to write care plans. And last night I basically wrote a care plan in the form of an ordinance and brought it to the city council to pass that would mandate inspections and reporting of all of our fire hydrants. We still have about 100 that need to be replaced. And it's an unfortunate set of circumstances, but it's a real and very dangerous situation.
So let's talk about Jason Laforest a little bit and your background. You talked about your profession during the
Yep.
day. You are a nurse and have been through the teeth of COVID, not just from a public service
Yeah.
standpoint, but from a healthcare standpoint, caring for people, seeing many patients in all likelihood lose their lives, and others hopefully who have recovered. You yourself had COVID at one point. How long ago was that? Maybe a couple months ago or so, if I recall.
In January, in between my first and second shot, somehow, and I don't know how, because of course we wear full PPE. Somehow one particle of virus made it into my system, and I was sick for about a week and a half with COVID.
And I can't imagine anyone who has been, impacted any more than you. I mean,
Yep.
obviously there are those who have lost loved ones and so forth. But as
Of
far as
course.
your day-to-day life, it's been quite a time for you, both from the public service standpoint and from the health care standpoint.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I became a nurse as a result of the earthquake in Port-au-Prince in Haiti in 2010. So that was sort of my first introduction to nursing. My mother was a nurse. I've been surrounded by nurses all my life. So, I love being a nurse. I love caring for people. I love working with interdisciplinary teams to fix things as best we can. This past year, when the COVID pandemic broke out in March, I went back to nursing full time. I had been working per diem in addition to my responsibilities as at that time I was executive director of Hoosick River Revival. So I went back to work full time. I was working 70 plus hours a week as charge nurse on a COVID unit, and I have supervised 2 other COVID units in the county since then. Both at Hillcrest Commons when their big outbreak happened in December. So I have seen, I've taken care of and supervised staff taken care of about 400 COVID patients, and I've been with about 80 patients as they've died from COVID, and it has certainly been a tough year. But sometimes as a nurse you can fix things, and sometimes as a nurse you just have to do what has to be done and help people die comfortably. But it's been a very tough year for patients, of course, their families, and nurses and caregivers all across our county, and of course the entire world.
So how does that inform your public service? I mean, yes, you talked about how you love North Adams. Now you've been a city councilor and the vice president of the council for some time now. And as you approach this and look at the corner office, making that transition from legislative body to the operations side, the executive side, tell me about your mindset and approach to that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm a straight shooter. Second, I've always been very mindful, sort of on the academic level since college, that things have both a theory and an application. And to be a good leader, you have to have a theory that you can get off of the table and put in place. Projects can't sit around collecting dust. They have to get done, and people want them to get done. I mean, in all communities, you have the three basic laws of success: potholes, paving, and plowing. The 3 P's of municipal government: potholes, paving, and plowing. You have to make sure those are done. You have to make sure that what's in your thoughts and in your best wishes for your community can be put into effect. And sometimes that involves creatively working with the state and congressional delegations, the governor's office, other mayors, the MMA. And I feel like I have the ability to be bold, to be transparent, and to put the things into place for North Adams that need to be tied up together now. some of them should have been done decades ago, but
Mm.
like I said, tough choices had to be made. But we're at a point where we can't keep kicking the can down the road on a lot of things.
Mhm. And I think that lesson, the three Ps lesson is one that over the years mayors have learned. Sometimes they've learned the hard way
Yeah.
because they underestimated the value of those things that matter to people. The things that are right in front of them, the potholes, the
Right.
paving, and the
Yeah.
plowing. So, you really do need to make sure those operations are solid, in my opinion, before you can go and do the big things, the things that you have the vision for, the things that will
That's right.
transform your city for years to come. I mean, I'm telling you, it is something, because there have been great dynamic mayors. And then, later, in fact, two people we know, you remember when Jim Roberto, for
Sure.
years, of course, it was the vision to revitalize the downtown and so forth.
Sure.
But it wasn't until his final 2 years that he really nailed it on public services, and actually brought in the consultant, the former Mayor Barrett, and those 2 years were some of the best years of public services, and
Right.
I remember Jimmy telling me, "Man, if I knew it was this easy, that people would be so happy,
Right.
and just thrilled that so people do appreciate that." So when you're doing the big vision and looking at it, you gotta do the basics too.
Absolutely. You can't build the house on sand. I mean, if you do, it's going to crumble. And you do have to take care of those basic public services and public safety needs before you can build an economy. If people don't feel safe, if people don't feel protected, then nothing else really matters beyond that.
And nothing like when you get a big road job after a road has been looking like I don't know, a moonscape for
Yeah.
the last decade. People never forget that. They'll always love you.
Right. Yeah.
So where do you go from here as you go through your decision process, and how you approach this? What are the next steps for you?
Well, of course, continuing to work with my team. I've started to put a campaign team together, working and discussing North Adams' needs and desires and ability to pay for those, with other civic leaders, with people who are engaged in the community, certainly other neighboring communities in Berkshire County. We're all really in this together in Western Massachusetts, so that has to be taken into account. But of course, until the papers are pulled and signed and returned, I guess technically you're not officially a candidate. But of course, in the era of social media, everything happens instantaneously. So when Mayor Bernard announced the Tuesday that he wasn't going to seek re-election, of course, the local press and the very good investigative reporter at WAMC was blowing up my phone almost immediately. So it was sort of unavoidable that
Boy, Josh Landis is a
is that his name?
That guy, we love you, Josh.
Is that Josh? Are you listening?
Man, he's solid,
Yeah.
man, and that coming by that honestly, I had that job for a little bit back a long time ago, and he's taken it to a new level. So nice work, Josh. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it, but yeah, he's on it.
He is. He's on it. Yeah.
So Jason Laforest, hey man, I wish you the very best, and I know I believe you'll be a candidate. I hope you will, and if you love that community and you want to do the best for it, then my gosh, it should be a good campaign, and we'll see what happens. So
absolutely,
I certainly wish you the best.
Well, thank you. And is this the John Kroll show? Is this
sure
a second generation John Kroll show, or what is this? So it's always good to talk to you.
We'll always have that North County correspondent, I hope.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right, my man. We'll see you soon.
All right. Take care, John.